Alright, once you have your pinch pot, you want to kind of let it set up so it gets leather hard, which means it's not going to be squishy anymore, and you can still smooth out the cracks and manipulate it a little bit, but it's not going to be flimsy and kind of collapse and fall apart. So I'm just using my thumb to smooth out any of these little bumps and surface cracks that you can see right here. And if I need to, I might dip my hand in a little bit of water and spread that on to smooth it out a little bit if it's too dry. So this I can kind of do throughout the process of adding on the attachments to my little clay creature. And because we're not making this with a wheel, this isn't going to be perfectly round, but we want to kind of get it as smooth as we can. If you really wanted to get it more round, you could tap it on the table and roll it around a little bit, or you could tap it with a block of wood on the edge, and that would flatten everything out. Anything that's rigid, that's going to not bend when it touches the clay, will help to smooth that out. But for now, I'm going to just leave this like this. It's pretty smooth. There's not a bunch of cracks going on here. So I'm going to make this into a fish. So I can kind of squish the mouth down a little bit, pinch these edges to manipulate it, to kind of give it that big wide open fish mouth shape. And the edges might crack a little bit. If they do, just add a little bit of water. So that's my main shape. So this is a pinch pot. This used to be the top, and now it's going to sit on its side. There'll be a fin up here and fins on the side. So I'm going to set that down. Then I'm going to grab some green clay, really soft and squishy and malleable, and I'm just going to kind of press that out on the table to smooth it all out, just so I can get it to be big enough where I can draw a shape on it and then cut it out to make my top fin. So that should be good enough. So what I'm going to use is a needle tool, which is a tool that has a handle and an end that looks like a needle. And I'm just going to kind of think about the shape that I want my top fin to be. And I'm just going to kind of draw that on here. And then I'll push down with the needle tool and cut it out once I have it drawn. And then I'm just going to push the clay out, save this extra for later. Now, I don't want this blunt shape right here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingers and squish this down to have this edge come to more of a point instead of being flat and blunt like that. So we'll do that. So then when I want to attach this, I'm going to look on here and see how I want this fin to look. Okay, so maybe I would want it to look like that. And then I'm going to kind of just press it down and mark on the edge, on the outside, where that's going to be. And then I want to slip. So that's the goopy, wet clay. So I'm going to add some of that on here. And I'm going to score, which are these hash marks. You always have to do this technique whenever you're attaching any clay to anything else, otherwise it's going to fall off. So I'm going to do it to both sides. So on the bottom of the fin, I'm going to grab a little bit of slip, which again is just really wet, slurry clay, like mud, and score, which is the hash marks. Then I'm going to line this up how I want it to be, and I'm just going to gently push down. And I can manipulate this still a little bit later on, and I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to clean up the sides. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add some side fins. So it's the same process. I'm going to get a little bit more clay because I'm going to be making 2 fins this time. I'm just going to flatten out the clay in between my hands a little bit. Spread it out with my thumb. You could push it onto the table as well. So I'm going to do that, then take my needle tool again, and I'm going to figure out the shape that I want. Now I don't want my side fins to be too big. So I could think maybe I would want a shape like that, or maybe I don't want that. I can just kind of use my finger to smooth it out, and I could do just a couple of fins that look like this. Now if you wanted them to be exact, you could cut one out, lay it on top of the clay, and then cut the other one out, and then they would be the same, and then the fins would be symmetrical on one side and the other. For right now, I'm just going to cut out these two. Now, something to keep in mind, this is going to be a little bit smaller than the final one because, again, I'm going to take my fingers and pinch around the edge to flatten that out to make it kind of to a point. So you have to keep in mind that the size and shape can be manipulated really easily. So again, instead of having that blunt edge, I'm just going to squish it, smooth it out with my finger, and pinch the other side. So now I have two different fin shapes that I'm going to use on the side. And so then to attach these, I'm going to see how do I want them to look. Maybe I would want them to be like this. Maybe I want them bending a little bit so that they look like they're going backwards a little bit, and maybe the other one is going forward, something like that. So I'm again going to just lightly press it on, mark a little guide spot where I know I need to add my slip, my slurry, muddy clay, and with the needle tool make my score marks. And again, I'm going to do that to the other side, make some score marks, and then I'm going to push this on. You can see I'm kind of squeezing and pushing on here, and then I'm going to take my finger and clean that up. And I can clean that up more later on too once that dries. Once it's attached, I don't want to manipulate it too much because I don't want the clay to become very weak. So again, on the other side, I'm going to line up, mark where I want it to be, add some slip, score marks. You want to make sure your score marks are deep enough. Score marks, add some slip, and then attach. So I want mine to kind of be the same, so I'm going to push it like this. So I'm squeezing it down, and then I'm kind of blending this extra slip that's on here kind of out, smoothing this out right here. These ends I kind of want to make kind of just disappear by really blending that into the body of the fish. Okay, so right now looks something kind of like this. So the last thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make two pretty big eyes, because fish are known for having some pretty big eyes. So I'm going to take a little chunk of clay, and I'm just going to roll it together in my hands to kind of make a ball, and I'll line that up, kind of just squish this down temporarily for right now, and then I want to try and make sure I have relatively the same amount of clay in the other one, so I can make sure that the eyes are going to be about the same size, and they're pretty close. So again, I'm going to kind of mark, and I just made a little indent where I can see where they're going to get attached. So I'm going to make some score marks. I'm going to add some slip, make some score marks again to really get that nice and messy, and slip and score on the underside of the eyeball. And now I'm going to push up from the inside of the mouth and push down up here to make sure that that's going to really attach. You can see the clay kind of squishes down a little bit, and that's going to be fine. So then I'm going to slip and score on the bottom of the other eyeball. And again, just push down till it squishes down a little bit. Now what I can do, I can take the back of a needle tool or a pencil or anything really, and I could make indents for eyes. You could also put small little balls of clay in there to make like a little pupil if you wanted to. You could add teeth, you could add an end fin out here, something that would look, just real quick, I would draw it and cut it out. And flatten this out. Get those fins all shaped up the right way. And then I would stick this on back here. I'll actually probably do this right now. Get my marks where I'm going to do my score, add a little bit of slip, and score on this back fin, and then just gently push this down to attach it. Now everything that I just attached is still really wet clay. It's really kind of green. So I'm going to let this kind of set up a little bit before I come back and polish these up and really refine all of these fins and seams and everything that I put on. And then you're done. You're ready for it to dry slowly and then glaze it once it's been fired once in the bisque fire. So there's your fish.